Good afternoon, collectors and friends. Welcome to Trading Card Therapy, episode number 93. I'm your host, the Dr. Leighton Sheldon, and I am very grateful to be back. It's been a rough couple weeks between some health things going on with myself and my family, but couldn't be happier to be back in the chair today. And I have a longtime friend, a fantastic guest for all of you to enjoy in just a few minutes. Before we bring on Brian Drent of Mile High Card Company, I just wanted to mention that this upcoming weekend is one of the best and most epic vintage card conventions in the entire country. So if you're not familiar with it, it's in Strongsville, Ohio. And I'll be there for a few days. We're going to ask Brian, but I think Brian will be there for a few days as well. And it is a total throwback to yesteryear. Almost every card there is vintage, none of that shiny stuff. And they've even moved across the street to a little bit of a larger facility at the hockey rink. And so before we bring on Brian, what I wanted to also mention is that for the first time ever, they are having a vintage trade night that Saturday night. So this Saturday night at the Best Western, which is the host hotel of the card convention. Group, I believe, is called Four Collectors, and Sammy Thunder's in there, and Mike Mahan and Dan Lynch and a lot of other great guys. They're putting on a free event for vintage collectors Saturday night from 6 to 10 p.m. in the ballroom at the Best Western. It's free. There's free pizza. You can bring your cards. You can wheel and deal, or you can just go for the social aspect and have some fun with fellow collectors. That being said, I'm now going to bring on Brian Drent from Mile High Card Company. Brian, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect, Leighton. How are you?
Great, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. I can't complain.
Excellent. Are you going to be there this weekend?
I will be there. Yeah, we're actually setting up at two shows this weekend, the Strongsville show and then the show up in Boston at the Shriners that Lucky's puts on. But I will be in Cleveland all weekend.
Very cool. You know, that Shriners show.
Absolutely one of my favorite shows. I would think it's either, aside from the National, either first or second in my list of shows.
So I agree with you, Brian, but believe it or not, my first ever Strongsville show was last year.
Yep.
And it was just a combination of timing and kind of similar to what you had said. I'm only one person, so I tended to go to that spring Shriner show.
Yeah, you're on the East Coast.
Exactly. But I tell you, I'm really looking forward to it. And not just the buying and the selling aspect, but Bri, there's going to be some real like salt of the earth collectors there.
Yeah,
some really good people.
And really the whole Midwest, because it kind of encompasses the Midwest all the way, to Chicago, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and then you definitely get a bleed over from the Pittsburgh area. So anybody in a 200-mile radius that's a vintage card enthusiast kind of finds their way to that show and always has. We've been going for probably 25 years now, and now we're a show sponsor. So it's a weekend I look forward to.
That's great. Well, speaking of this show, and then we're going to move on, as we both have a lot to prepare for, it sounds like, in the next few days.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as this particular show, and of course you could apply this to probably most other big shows, Bri, what's a piece of advice that you could offer to a collector out there that's coming into, let's be candid, right? It's going to be a nice, relaxed environment as far as the people are concerned.
Yeah.
But I personally feel it's going to be competitive, meaning the market is strong, right? Good material will likely sell Friday, not Sunday, unless you're overpriced. And so with that, all of that being in mind, what's a piece of advice you could offer to a fellow collector that might be coming to Strongsville this weekend so that they might secure that item they're looking for, or to be fair, just have a little bit more fun at the convention?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And it's one that probably needs to be looked at and thought about when going to any show, but definitely this show because of just the material that's there. You have, like you've already touched on, it's all vintage. I mean, there's a tiny bit of shiny stuff, but it's not like most shows in today's realm. But I think a collector to really enjoy the experience the best, if they have the ability to get there on Friday, that's probably the best because the best material is going to be gone before, if they get there Saturday or Sunday. And then obviously, with their want list, their needs, what they're looking for, really focus in and know what you're looking for so you can go in with a game plan that really gives you the best chance at success.
I think it was really well said, Bri. I'll add to it for me personally, and I don't know about you, but I know a lot of dealers, they get in Thursday. And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I'm not only getting in Thursday, but I also had a couple collectors, and I was really floored that they asked me to kind of hang out with them in the afternoon. And I realized that they're not going to the convention until Friday.
Yeah.
And I said, for me, I really want to be there Thursday. I have access.
Yep.
And obviously we do this full time, Bri, you and I.
Yep.
But I think that your advice is very well put. Get there as early as you can. And if you're going to debate going one of the days of the 3, if you're not someone who has some super duper exciting vintage cards on your high end want list, and you're just going budget shopping, I'd add to that, go on Sunday.
Sure.
Because
That's
on Sunday things will loosen up a little bit, not a ton, right? Because there's a ton of platforms out there that provide liquidity, but you might find a $40 card for $30 on Sunday.
There's no doubt about that. I agree. And like you said, we're going to head there. We land at 3:00 tomorrow, and we'll be on the way to the show. And we've got to set up, scope out the room for a little bit, and then fortunately go look at a deal tomorrow night. So, we'll hopefully have a great day tomorrow.
I'm sure you will. And you're always smiling, so every day is a good day.
There you go.
So, Bri, even though you and I know each other well, I want to try to take the approach with this podcast. We're going to get into your auction in a little bit, because you have an incredible one. But I want to provide some background and for people to get to know you.
Yeah.
Because even though you and I know each other and we've hung out quite a bit, not everyone who's maybe watching or consuming Trading Card Therapy may actually be familiar with you, or for that matter, your company.
Sure.
So, Bri, if you could maybe just give everyone a brief background on, how did you get started in sports? Did sports or cards come first? And then if you fast forward from there, when you graduated school, did you have one of those corporate jobs for a while?
Yeah.
And, kind of what happened from there
before
Mile High became Mile High?
For sure. I started setting up at baseball card shows as a dealer. I was like 15 years old. So before I could drive a car, my mom would drop me off at the Grand Village Mall. I grew up in Michigan, outside of Grand Rapids, Michigan. She dropped me off. I'd set up at the card show with my wooden showcases, do $186 in sales. And the promoter would come back and he'd say, "Do you want to set up next month?" And that absolutely. And then it'd be $400 in sales, and then $800. So it kind of just morphed from that all through college. I played basketball in college, so you weren't supposed to have a job. So cards became my job. And I did card shows throughout the Midwest, graduated, got a regular job. I was in corporate America for 5 years doing cards on the side. And before you knew it, I was making more doing, my passion and my hobby than I was at my job. And fortunately, one day my wife said, "You should just do cards." So that was in March of 97. We started full-time as Mile High Card Company. We started doing auctions really probably in 98 or 99 on a very, very much different size and scope than it is today. Today we do three catalog auctions. The catalog auctions range from probably 1,700 lots to 2,500 lots in scope, 350 to 500 page catalogs. We're very fortunate. We have a really strong collector base. I think it rivals really any company. And then obviously, we have great consigners. We also do 6 what we term our extra innings auctions, which is just internet-based auctions. Same platform, same clientele, just no catalogs. Everything's done through electronic advertising. And that's kind of how we do things. Attend quite a few shows throughout the year. I mean, it's probably skinny down from where it used to be, obviously. But we do the national, both Philly shows, Strongsville, a couple shows in Boston, and then the Chicago shows.
Well, you're certainly busy, Bri.
Yeah,
that's for sure. No one's going to accuse you of being lazy, sitting around on the sidelines. And so, I appreciate that every time I see you at the shows, not only do you bring good energy, but your stuff is fantastic. And I always feel like there's a conversation going on around your booth. of some sort of, whether it be historical or vintage card relevance.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage folks, if you don't know Bri or you haven't gone up to introduce yourself, do it this weekend at Strongsville. He's going to be
We'd
there.
love to talk to you. We're right at the front of the show, right in the middle front booth, and come on up and introduce yourself and take a look at what we have. We're going to bring the Wagner card that's in this auction, so that'll be fun to show.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm definitely going to take some photos on site, Bri.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we get into kind of like the auction end of things, because I want to make sure we talk about the Wagner, and there's some other really fun goodies in the auction.
Sure.
I'm curious, speaking of auctions, I don't know if this is controversial, but I believe everyone kind of has their own opinion.
Yep.
So it's kind of two parts. Number one, as the auctioneer, what do you feel is the best way to end an auction? And then I'll ask you the second question now, seeing as how there's no right way to eat a Reese's, right? There's no right way to end the auction. And let's be clear, folks, 20 years ago, I used to work for an auction house, and Brian has allegiance to the consigners to get the best possible money that he can get. And at the same time, you want to make sure that the bidders are happy enough that they'll come back the next time. And so with that challenge, Bri, I'm curious, not only what do you think is the best way to end an auction, but then based on that, what's a tip or two you can offer to someone out there who's a collector and candidly might be intimidated by the auction process?
Yeah.
What's a tip or two you can offer to them to try to help win an item?
That's a great question. I mean, question that probably, we do podcasts like this quite often, and nobody's actually asked that question. It's a great question, and it's very relevant because we changed several years ago. We changed our process after years and years and years of doing it one way. Is there a best way to end the auction? No, there isn't. Just like you said, I'm kind of in a catch-22. I'm working for my consigners. I have a great allegiance to my consigners because that's who has, endowed us the material to on their behalf to do the very best we can with their goods and their collectibles and their treasured pieces in a lot of cases. So I do have a great deal of allegiance towards them. On the flip side of that, I definitely have a great deal of allegiance and thought for my customers that are going to be bidding. And everybody and their brother wants the auction to end as quickly and painlessly as possible. Myself included. I don't like getting home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not what I want. So forever and ever, we did, the auction ended as a complete auction after the 30-minute rule, and it just took forever. And I don't think.
Just to clarify, Bri, for people listening, that what you mean is people would bid and bid, and when there was no bid on any item, for I think 15 minutes, then the auction would be over. And on the one hand, prices would be very good, but on the other hand, as you just mentioned, you're getting home 4 or 5 in the morning, which, to be fair, means that other buyers of yours are not going to bed till 4 or 5 in the morning, and that might not make everyone happy. I just want to clarify for people who are listening to this that may not be familiar with terminology so well, but go ahead, please.
No, you're absolutely right. And on our end, after the auction ends, we do the invoicing that night. And so we're here for another hour plus, and getting all the shipping right, which is not as easy as people think. Anyways, we made the decision to go to a process that each individual item lot closes on its own after 15 minutes without a bid on that item. Actually, it's 30 minutes. I'm sorry, but it helps a great deal to give collectors pointers. Maybe I think if you really want the item, I think consultation with the auction house, questions back and forth, be it on the phone or through email, is always vital. We encourage all of our customers, if they have a question on something, they have a question on the bidding process, please reach out to us. We'll explain every nuance, every little thing. And then, like you said, if somebody's intimidated by the auction process, sometimes this is the first auction they bid in. They're used to eBay. That's what they know. And so they're not used to a different forum, a different platform, if you will. And the best thing to do is familiarize yourself with the platform, with how the auction closes. And then I would definitely encourage people to use the max bid feature. I can assure you we can't see a thing. And I know it's sometimes a little scary, a little difficult. You question yourself, but that's probably the best way to go about it.
So, Bri, I not only agree with you, but I wanted to jump in as someone who's an active bidder in your auction, and in candidly dozens of auctions.
Yep.
So to take it from the top, number one, to help fellow collectors and bidders, not only have I received tremendous customer service and help from all the auction houses, they usually go above and beyond, but there's only one instance I've found where they're a little bit less than thrilled. And I can explain to you the reason why. It's very clear. Sure. If you wait until the last hour before minimum initial bids are due to get a back scan, to clarify the count, all of that could have been done days and weeks ahead of time. So I could just tell you as a fellow bidder, and also someone who's friends with guys like Brian from Mile High and Brian from REA and Derek from Heritage and all the guys, they're all willing to help all of you. But remember, they're only humans. And so the earlier you can help yourself, that would be my advice, Bri.
Great.
Do that by reaching out. And then number two, as far as the max bids go, because I agree with you, the caveat is this: you have to know and feel comfortable. So maybe someone who's first bidding with you, I might not tell them to bid their max because you want to make sure that they're going to build confidence with the whole process. Sure. But I would say this: in terms of the two distinctive types of items that are at auction, if I could give a piece of advice to a fellow collector that might be listening to this, what I would say is the more commoditized, in this case, probably a card versus a piece of memorabilia where the value is, a wider range. Yeah. If you have a card's $1,000, you're not going to lose your mind or go broke by putting in a max bid of 900. Because if you put in a max bid of 900, believe it or not, it might stand up. Mm-hmm. And if you get outbid at 950 or 1,000, you're not going to feel bad. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I use commoditized is because they roughly know that a Hank Aaron 57 Topps in a 6 is worth X, right? Correct. So unless it's dead nut centered, it's the nicest one you've ever seen, in which case, okay, go 20% above what you think it's worth. But even then, as per Brian, what just suggested, you don't need to stay up till 4 a.m. to bid 1,200 instead of 1,000. But I will tell you, when you talk about a photograph, which, Brian, I think we both agree, we not only collect them, but the beauty is often in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
So we don't really know what a photo is worth. And so I feel like for those and those types of items where the range can really be vast, I would say in the beginning, definitely bid one bid at a time. And even as you become more experienced, it's hard to place a big bid on something that you don't know the value of.
Yeah. No, those are great points, especially I'm glad you touched on, and we want to help everybody. We answer, every email possible that I say that, and there's probably one or two here or there that somehow slipped through, but we want to answer everything. The phone gets answered all the time. We're always reaching back out to people, but just like Leighton said, please, 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 the night of the auction or even the day of the auction, I'm not going to say a shit show, but it's busy and it's flying. And there's a lot of things. So if you need a back scan, you need a further description, you have a question, is this on the holder? Is this mark on the holder? Is it on the card? Something along those lines. Please reach out to us before the last day, just because going and getting the material and doing it at that time, whereas we'll do everything in our power to make it happen, it is difficult on the last day.
Now, listen, very well put, Bri. We're going to move on now. And believe it or not, I want to discuss this because to me, I find it just as exciting as I'm sure other folks who follow your auction find it, is that, Bri, you're not only getting items for auction, you sell them on consignment, but on occasion, whether it be you buy them or you also get them on consignment, you've been involved in some incredible finds throughout the years. Yeah. And there was two in particular that I not only wanted to highlight, but I'm also envious of. And the first one, excuse me, which I feel like I know a little bit more about Then the second one is what's known affectionately as the beer box find.
Yeah.
And let's, if we could start there, just to tell everyone briefly, Brian, how did it go down?
Yeah.
When did you first, did you get an email? Did you get a call? Did someone send you a telegram? But for those that don't know, you can Google it and Brian will come up all over the internet. It is called the Beer Box Find. And there is some incredible material in that find, like a 1948 Bowman. It was either a full box or a near complete box, things that you literally may never see again. And if you appreciate like the mystery of treasure and unopened,
crazy,
this was the find for you. So Brian, please take it away.
Yeah, no, thanks, Leighton. That's cool. So this is how it happened. I was at this desk. I was on the phone with a really big time client. We were doing some dealing back and forth. It might have been a consignment. It might have been a direct sale. I don't know what it was. But Mitch Rosenberg, who's my head writer, came in and the door was open. He came in and he's like, hey, you got a phone call. I kind of shoot him off. I'm on the phone and I said, I'll get to him. And he said, no, you need to take it now.
Had he ever done that before?
I shoo him off. And he comes back and he's got a tablet and he has written on the tablet, 1948 Bowman baseball, unopened wax box, 61 Fleer basketball, unopened wax box, take call now. And he's got it in marker and he's holding it up. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to have to give you a call back.
Yeah. Seems about the right time to exit to the next call.
So I get on the phone and the guy starts to tell me what he has. He tells me who he is. And one thing that we didn't, because we had Beer Box 1 and we had Beer Box 2. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, we didn't tell everybody exactly where it came from. But and I think most people know. It was the family that owned Donruss. That's who it was. And when he told me that, and they bought the boxes so they could, they were doing non-sports cards in the 60s and then into the 70s. They would buy their competitors' products, namely Topps, and they would open 1 or 2 packs and put the rest on the shelf. That's it. That's how it happened. The 48 Bowman box was interestingly, I think they were acquired by General Foods, and the 48 Bowman box was at General Foods, and somehow they got it in the 60s. Okay. So they kept it. It was 19 out of 24 packs, I believe. 20 out of 24, something like that. Anyways, I talked to the guy on the phone. He was really cool, real Southern gentleman, really nice guy. We had a great conversation. He's telling me what he had, how he got it. I'd like to come down and take a look. And he said, well, if I was you, I'd get here. I said, can I come tomorrow? And it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my time. And he was in Memphis. And I said, let me check on some flights. I'll be there tomorrow. I'll call you back in 15 minutes. So I checked on some flights and everything worked out. I flew. I called him back, told him I would be at his house at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, straight up. And I booked the flight, flew out that morning. And I pulled up at his house and it was 12:58. I walked up, knocked on the door, and he looked at his watch and he said, by God, you were here at 1 o'clock. And I said, yeah. He said, come on in. It's right here. And it was a very nice house. And he opened the door and it went right to the dining room. And he had taken a white sheet or white towels and they were over the dining room and all the boxes were sitting out on the sheet, on the towels. And I looked at him, I remember, and I said, well, you weren't joking, And the 48 Bowman, I don't know how, one pack was loose and had been opened. And it had 2 Rizzutos and 2 Spawns in the same pack.
So, Brian, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. Because I can feel it and I wasn't there. What was going through your body when you realized that this was real?
I've done this my whole life, just like you, Leighton. And we go to shows all the time. This is what we're looking for. This is what we're doing. This is what we do it for. And I was like, literally, like the hairs on my arms were standing up. I was just I was caught off guard. I was stunned. And it takes a lot to stun me. And I've told people, I may have told you, there's not many times we've all gone and bought deals or picked up consignments, whatever it may be. And you get back to the hotel that night and, maybe watch a movie or turn on Sports Center. There's rarely a time that I actually get the bags out and open it back up and sit down and start looking at it.
Totally right,
But
Brian.
I couldn't stop myself. I was just
Oh my
looking
God.
at it.
I just felt it now. Like I got
Yeah.
goosebumps and the hairs are like, standing straight up, because you're right. That was such a special occasion for you. That's awesome that you did that. And that you remember it so well that you're like, I had to go back in right away and take a look at such precious material.
And then I remember calling Steve Hart, because we had to get everything authentic.
Of course. Wow.
I was at the airport the next morning when I called him. And I called him and I said, Steve, I'm coming today. I'll be there. I changed my flights. I went from Memphis straight to Chicago and then and went to Steve. And he said, what do you got? I said, it's really important. You got to get them done in that day. And he's like, well, what do you got? I told him I got a 48 Bowman unopened box. And I remember he said, what? He goes, no one's ever even seen a pack. They don't exist. I said, you got just take a look at the picture I just texted you. And he said, what the heck?
Yeah.
So he said, how do you know it's 48 Bowman? I said, there was a pack open. That's the only way, because it doesn't say it anywhere on the box.
No, it doesn't.
Or the packs. It says play ball. You think, but the size isn't right for a play ball.
Yeah.
So
small.
That's what it says. You've seen the packs.
Yeah.
And so that's how it happened. And then, the guy, the consignor was very, very, very happy. He almost sold the whole thing. You're not going to believe this. This is true, though. He almost sold the first deal. He took it to a shop. And it wasn't a shop in the traditional sense of a card shop. They sold, I wasn't there. But the way he got our number, he wasn't a collector, is a consignor of ours worked at this card shop. But it wasn't a real card shop. They sold SEC football memorabilia and jerseys and, bucket hats and, all kinds of little tchotchkes and stuff. But he worked there, and he had consigned some 48 leaf baseball cards to our auction. And he said the owner tried to buy the deal for $8,000.
Oh my! For everything?
For everything. Well, for the part one.
But Brian, just the 48 Bowman pack
because
was worth more than $8,000.
The two deals at that time was 1.7 million. I mean, today, who knows what it would be.
Sure.
But I remember when everything was done, we sent him a really nice finder's fee. A really nice finder's fee.
Good for him, and good karma for the gentleman who almost sold $1.5 million, $2 million of cards for $8,000 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's fantastic. I wanted to ask you about one or two other finds, but I also want to be conscious of your time. So what I'm going to do is, if we have some time this weekend, maybe I'll do a quick interview on site of the show. What I'd like to do is talk about your current auction.
Yeah, for sure.
Which, Brian, when does it end for those that are watching?
April 26th.
Okay, so folks, you can go to milehighcardco.com. And if you're not someone who's already registered, you can register for free. For full transparency, I do bid in Brian's auctions and often win things.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, there's a number of cards, but there's one in particular I wanted to talk about today. Was the T206 Honus Wagner.
Sure.
And I looked this morning. I don't know if the bidding changed, but it was about 500,000 and change, plus the BP. Mm-hmm. A lot of time left in the auction.
Yeah.
Or what I wanted to talk about was eye appeal. And of course, with this particular example, on the one hand, Bri, the eye appeal is actually very strong.
Sure.
On the other hand, to be clear, it's designated as authentic. And a little bit furthermore, it's also designated that it's restored.
Correct.
And for those that maybe don't quite understand what exactly was done to the card, I'm curious, for those that don't know, if you could share with everyone, to the best of your ability, what restoration was actually done to that?
Yeah, I can. And I actually have and possess an image of the card before the restoration.
Wow.
And it was rough. There's no question about it. Whoever the owner was at that time, who I don't know, decided to get the card restored. Restoration in our hobby is not well received. It is in every other collectibles field out there, but ours, including comic books, including automobiles, and whatever it may be, movie posters. It is on the memorabilia side more so than the card side. This card, I think, transcends really our hobby. It transcends collectibles in America. And so if there's a card that this is to be well received with, I think it would be this card. What has been done is some in-painting, some increases, notably around his nose. That's why the presentation is very strong. It has a very nice look, but mostly in-painting and removal of some creases. The card was trimmed around the borders. There's border left, but it's not the full border. So even without the restoration, it would have only been authentic, and it was in an authentic by PSA. And maybe I should even put the image that we have up so people can see.
Yeah, I mean, I would love, Brian, if you put it up there. I'll certainly share it in the video, and if you or if you message me it, I would share it. If nothing else, because let's be honest, Brian, only one person can win it.
Yeah.
But I think if we do this right, we're going to educate people in our space, in the hobby, about not that this is necessarily okay or not okay, but that it is widely accepted in many other arenas.
Yeah, pretty much
every. And you should decide for yourself what you like.
This card may or may not be for every collector. What it does do is in today's world, there's going to be a PSA 1 coming up in another of our competitors' auctions, and you know who it is. Yep. I know where the bidding most likely is going to start, and with the buyer's premium, we're talking about a number that PSA 1s haven't sold at, which is going to be very strong. That said, this card provides the ability to buy into, quote unquote, the Wagner Club, if you will, at a price. This card we had in spring of 23. We offered this card. It sold for $1,968,000 at that time. Our consignor has decided to move the card, and fortunately, he purchased it from us and is selling it through us. We've fortunately been, we've sold 5 Wagners in the last 4.5 years. So we're very, very fortunate to have that happen. But with this, I think the card will definitely eclipse $2+ million, and should sell from 2.2 to 2.5.
Well, I think it's a beauty. And it's going to be interesting, as you said. I took note of the other PSA 1 that's going to be up for auction soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was discussing this with Jeremy Leon from NEFA D4 on our other podcast, the Vintage Spotlight, recently. And I think that you nailed it. It's not for everyone, but it might represent a way for you to, or split it with a buddy, right, to get into the very elusive Wagner Club.
Real deal.
And to be clear, I'm not an art expert,
nor am I,
or a photo expert.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, like, I have some old photographs, which if they were restored, they would look nicer.
Correct.
And I'd be willing to do that once again, just because they would look nicer. And so I've seen this Wagner, and I'll see it again in a couple of days in Strongsville. At the very least, I encourage you, if you're going to be in Strongsville, and if not, to go on to Brian's website, milehighcardco.com, because it gives you a glimpse into what the Wagner could look like out of a pack. And I think that's super cool. So even if you have no intention to bid or buy or win it, it really is historical. It is monumental, of course, in terms of American collecting. Let's be honest, Bri, around the world, I'm pretty sure that if you know about baseball in a particular country, they likely know about the T206 Honus Wagner.
Yeah. I have friends just like you do that are not in our space, not of the understanding of our business, and they'll ask, they're always inquisitive and curious about what we do, and they'll say, what's the best card you've ever sold? And invariably, I have pictures just like anybody else on your phone, and I'll show them, and they say they don't know a thing, but they say, "Oh, I know that card. I know that one. That's the good one." So
Yeah.
that's how it works,
And to quote our mutual friend Brady Hill, who was kind enough to join me recently on Trading Card Therapy, he said that when you show a Wagner to someone, they don't ever say, "Well, what grade is it?"
No.
They just want to know that you have one.
Yeah.
So in this case, Brian, not only would you have one, but you'd have one that actually looks halfway decent.
We always say that about 52 Mantles. If you're a really astute, advanced collector and somebody says, what's your Mantle look like? They don't have to even say the year. You know the year.
Totally.
They're asking about. You know
and
it.
And it's interesting.
It's almost, I don't have that one. Now you're not as relevant of collector. And so that's the case with this card. When it's just having this card.
Absolutely.
That's having the card.
Well, if someone out there wants to bid aggressively and wants to sell a share or two, I'm in. You can hit me up, Leighton@justcollect.com. Thanks for laughing, Brian. But seeing as how you did mention the 52 Mantle, and we have just a couple minutes left, I thought this was really interesting. So I checked out your auction. Like I said, I already started bidding. And you have a 52 Topps signed Mantle, which, let's be clear, Brian, non-T206 Wagner might just be one of the hottest, if not the hottest card in the hobby in the last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So this is what I thought was interesting about it. It's signed in the middle here. I wasn't in love with it, but then I took another look at it. And I'll tell you, Bri, I forgot about for a minute it was autographed. And I said, how does this look as a 1? And all of a sudden, magically, I looked. I'm like, wow, Bri, it's pretty well centered.
Yeah.
And then when you factor in how almost impossible it is to get a Mickey Mantle signed 52 Topps, I got to be honest, I'm excited to see it this weekend. I'm going to try to figure out what I think it's worth. I don't think I'm going to buy it to quote unquote give to my son when I'm no longer here, but I think I might buy it if I think there's value there. And this is what I'm trying to pass along to a collector. I think that Mantle, of course, is not going to set a record. It's only a 6 auto and it's low grade. But Bryce, similar to the Wagner, not in terms of restoration, but man, I think it could be a wonderful opportunity for someone to grab a legit hobby grail, which, to be clear, gang, a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle that's signed was never available in a pack. Ever.
No.
And that the Honus Wagner can't say about it.
It's a good point. I think you touched on some great points because in the yesteryear of our hobby, it was frowned upon to get cards signed, specifically rookie cards and more valuable cards. Well, the 52 Mantle has always been valuable, very valuable. And so that was a card that if you were going to have Mantle sign a card, you didn't have a 52 Mantle signed. You didn't have a 51 Bowman signed. That wasn't something you were going to do. So to explain the condition of this one, which isn't the greatest, that's why it's like that, because that's one that you could have had signed. And in this case, somebody did. And so when you combine those factors, it, like you said, is definitely a hobby grail.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the pricing where it was at the moment this morning. I'm like, wait a minute. This card unsigned would sell for $25,000, and it's only this. I'm like, if Mantle was alive, people would legitimately pay him $25,000 to sign a 52 Topps card.
That's true.
So I don't think I'm letting any cat out of the bag here, but if you haven't checked it out yet, check out the 52 Topps signed Mantle, the T206 Wagner, of course, hundreds of other amazing vintage cards in your upcoming auction. Bri, I wanted to ask you one more question if I could. If you could think about one area of the hobby, so if it's the National, if it's PSA, if it's your auction houses, your auction house or auction houses in general, what either innovative or technological change or advancement would you like to see that would benefit everyone as a whole?
Man, I think one of the things that would be really nice if it could be done, and I very much assume it could be done. We're all very familiar with vintage card prices. pricing tools in general, apps. And it's become such a huge part of our business. And what's the comp on this? What's the comp on this? And to take it further to a further place, I think it would be wonderful if a company was out there that not only could give you relevant pricing on an SGC card, a Beckett card, a PSA card, but it could also, with the next click, give you the pop report, for that grade, give you things of that nature. How many have been graded? How many in 9s? How many in 8s? How many in 7s? Just so it made everything much easier. So those are kind of just one thing that I think would be really relevant in our business.
And Bride, that would help a lot of different people.
It would.
And if I could add to that, because we know, and like we mentioned recently in the Vintage Spotlight, we know that eye appeal is also more paramount than ever before.
For sure.
So I would love if, whether it be Bobby, our friend from VCP, or a player to be named later, could somehow start to incorporate that not all 8s are equal. So, hey, this 8, because right now I can tell you, Brian, the research I do, the only way I discover why this 8 sold for more is by clicking open and seeing the image. And of course, guys like you or I have a lot of experience. Oh, it's a beauty. It's got great registration. It's well centered, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But right now, that's not really out there. Do I think it's coming? Yes. How soon? Who knows? But I agree with you. Anything and everything that could be done to help streamline the auction buying process,
sure,
I think would be very, very helpful.
When you're bidding in an auction on auction night, you've got VCP open, you've got the pop reports open, you've got every 4 or 5 things open that you're juggling between before you even place a bid. If there was something that had one thing and made your life a lot easier, I think that would be nice.
So, Brian, when I started, I'm going to come to you for investment, but I agree with you. I think this is a great idea. And as far as the bidding, just to be clear, because someone asked me about this the other day, Brian, it's part of the reason why I can't bid on my phone in auctions. I could do it the final hour. In other words, like once I'm familiar with all the information, then I could bid from my phone, going out and hanging out with my buddies. But when I'm actually doing the real work and getting my hands dirty, I need to have like 2 big monitors because I have open like 5 screens.
That's right.
Well, Brian, I really appreciate you taking the time today and joining us and discussing a lot of really interesting topics as related to the hobby.
I really appreciate having me on. I'll come on anytime. I loved it and look forward to seeing you in Strongsville.
Yeah, I'll see you in a couple of days, bud.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks, Leighton.
Take it easy. So, gang, that was my longtime friend, Brian Drent from Mile High Card Company. Has an amazing upcoming auction. It is running now. You, of course, can find it at milehighcardco.com. Brian will be in Strongsville this weekend. I'll be in Strongsville this weekend. A bunch of the 4 Collectors gang will be in Strongsville this weekend. And don't forget, as a special reminder, there is an amazing vintage-only trade night planned for the Best Western on Saturday night of the Strongsville Card Show this weekend at the Ballroom. It's totally free pizza, free vintage camaraderie. Bring some cards if you want to trade or sell. And if not, just come to hang. And man, I am so happy to be back in the chair with all of you. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Trading Card Therapy. Until next time.